So in this video, I'm going to go over why you don't need to use the wedge technique to increase tension in the deadlift, what technique errors can occur from using the wedge technique, and then a way to increase tension in the deadlift without having to use the wedge technique. So, for those who don't know what the wedge technique is, the express demo I will give you is that when you start in this position, people start with their hips high. They generally pull the slack out the bar, bring their hips down, and then lift. So, I mean, this can, get you good tension in the deadlift, and it is a method to get tension in the deadlift. However, the point of this video is to show you that you don't necessarily need to do it. But yes, pulling gets your upper back tight, dropping down, you will feel a lot of tension in your hamstrings, glutes, upper back, and then you're ready to come up. However, there is issues that can occur, and there's a lot of technique errors that stem from the wedge technique. And if you just take the wedge technique out, it will, in most cases, not all cases, but in most cases, remove these errors which happen. So, a thing that there is a problem with it is that what the wedge technique is doing is adding an extra movement prior or within the deadlift setup. And because it's an extra movement, that is more chance for an error to be made. And as I said, it is not necessary to do the wedge technique. You can do a deadlift without the wedge technique. So, with you lifting your hips up from here, dropping down, that is a whole extra movement which errors can occur. What errors can occur from that? One, when you're starting here and then you're dropping to get your hips in the position which you want to lift from, there might be variants to which you start your hip height. You might start your hips a little bit higher, a little bit lower, then the next rep a little bit higher, especially if you're doing a set of whatever, 6 reps or whatnot. You might miss the mark with your hips. As you get more experience, then over time, that yes, you will get more consistent with your hip height. But again, because you are moving your hips, there is more chance of getting an error. The second error that can occur is that, particularly if you start with the bar, if you start too close to the bar, as you get your hips high and you drop down, you have a chance of hitting the bar with your shins, which is going to push it forward. So if the bar is rolling forward as you lift up, the distance of the bar from your hips increase, going to make the lift harder than it needs to be because you're increasing the moment arm between the load and the joint or the axis of rotation. The other issue that can, I guess you could say it's a technique error that can stem from this, is that when it's difficult to get extension of your spine when you're doing the wedge technique. So what's extension of the spine? That when I'm starting in this position, I can extend my spine before I lift the bar off the floor, okay? What I find is quite difficult to do, it is possible, but it is harder, that when you're in this position, trying to extend the spine and then drop your hips and to keep that spine in extension as you're dropping your hips, that can be quite difficult to do. So people start to end up looking like a dog taking a shit when they're deadlifting because they're having a hard time doing this with their pelvis when they're up here and dropping down, so they have a hard time extending their spine with the wedge technique. So, how do you get tension in the deadlift without using the wedge technique? So the method that I teach is actually starting the hips in the position to which you want to start the deadlift from. So we are wedging and then dropping our hips into this position or whichever position you want to start your hips in, and then you're going to lift from there. I'm going to start with my hips in that position, okay? So this is going to be the position I start with, and then from here, which I'll go over these steps in a sec, I'm going to lift straight from that position. So I took the whole wedge movement out. With the setup, after setting my hip height, I use a 3-step setup. You can do these steps in whichever order that you like. I will show you in the order that I like to do them, but you don't necessarily have to do it in this order. Step 1 is arch your lower back, okay, which is just a tilting of the pelvis, all right? You must be able to do this movement. If you cannot do this movement, you will not be able to do this step. I can make a whole extra video about how to tilt the pelvis, but this video will go too long if I try to explain that. So, a rotation of the pelvis. 2, pulling the slack out the bar, which is quite simple. It's not as complicated as it's made out to be. It is literally just pulling the bar directly up to the ceiling. You're not pulling it this way. Okay, if you're pulling it backwards, people tend to shift into their heels and they move their weight back like this. And we do not want that, because as we come up, it's going to throw us forward, and there's going to be some movement, horizontal movement in our body. So you were just pulling the slack straight up to the ceiling, and you'll find what that achieves, just pulling that slack, okay, hearing that click, you will find it will pack your lats, retract your shoulder blades, it will get your upper back tight. You don't necessarily have to forcefully try to retract your shoulder blades, pack your lats and all that stuff. You just pulling the slack out the bar directly into the ceiling correctly will generally get your upper back super, super tight. Which you can see if you look at my upper back area, when I pull the slack out the bar, my upper back area is tight. So, the third step is just breathing and bracing in the midsection, which I won't go over. If you've done through those 3 steps, arch your back, which gets your lower back muscles in extension, or they contracted. You're pulling the slack out the bar, which is getting your upper back muscles in extension and contracting those upper muscles. And then breathing and bracing your midsection, that is getting that braced and contracted. You have created tension here, here, here. That is your upper body has got maximum tension, and now you're ready to lift the barbell off the floor. So putting those 3 steps together, I'm going to arch, pull the bar, take my breath, and then lift the bar up. So arch, pull, breath. So you can see with that method, I still was able to create tension in my upper body without having to wedge my hips down. So hopefully that helped. If you have any questions, send me a message, and that's it.